Hi, this is Rick with OpusEvent, and this video will be to show everyone around the Solo and Ensemble Contest scheduling. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and go to contest.opusevent.com, and I'll sign in with my OpusEvent login. Once there, I'm on a select contest page, and I'm going to look for our little test contest that we set up. We set up one for Oregon music educators, District 0 testing, which is kind of a dummy contest that I'm using to do some of these training videos on. So I went ahead and selected that. And before we go ahead and get into the scheduling page, I want to briefly go through the settings that you need to have in place, the prerequisites to scheduling. And those are in a couple of different places. First of all, I'll show you the first one is in Setup Contest Settings. And if you're watching this video, you're a contest manager most likely, and you've probably already seen this page multiple times. So in the list of options that we have here, I'm going to go to the Scheduling Settings. That'll bring up the scheduling page. And here are the different options that we have that we want to have set properly. First of all, we have an option here to schedule unpaid entries. If an entry is unpaid, do we want to schedule it or not? Your choice in your particular contest. For this one, I have a lot of test entries that I have set up, and I haven't paid them yet. So I want to schedule them anyway, just so I can show you the scheduling routine. The next one that's caused a little bit of confusion here this year is allow double time slot. So I want to take a moment and just describe what a double time slot is. If you're allowing, let's say, 10 minutes per entry for performance time, if you allow double time slots, that means that you're giving the teachers the ability to check a double time slot box on a student's entry, and instead of reserving 10 minutes for that entry, it will reserve double the time, 20 minutes. This could, some events have this just to allocate more time for large ensembles that may have set up, that type of thing, or state level events are usually longer time slots. So you have to choose whether or not you're going to allow double time slots or not. Another one that affects scheduling is here the maximum number of accompanist entries. By default, we set that to 999, but if you want to limit that down to a reasonable number, maybe 15 or 20 or whatever is appropriate for your contest, you can set the maximum number of entries for an accompanist. Once they reach that maximum, it won't let them be accompanist for any other entries. So it kind of stops them cold right there. Okay, the biggest things that affect contest scheduling is this number of minutes between scheduled entries for accompanists and for entries. By default, we usually set these to 10 minutes, to one time slot, and 2 time slots. So I'm setting it to 10, 10, 20. What this means is that we're going to give an accompanist a minimum of 10 minutes in between scheduled entries. So if they're scheduled at 9 a.m. for a 10-minute time slot, the next time they would be able to perform in the same room is 9:20, right? 10 minutes for the time slot and then a 10-minute break right here. If you want them to do it back to back in one room, set that number to 0. Same thing goes for accompanist in a room. Are you going to give them 10 minutes to get to another room in the same building? And how much time are you going to give them to get to a different building, a room in a different building? So doing it with 10, 10, 20, or whatever the increment of your time slots are, gives them a lot of leeway. They will always have a break in between. Same goes for entries, that you can set the entries different too. So you could set the accompanist, say, nope, they can play back to back in one room, but if they're going to move rooms, we give them 10 minutes to get there. And then you can still leave this for the entries at 10, 10, 20. Don't worry about setting anything for the teacher. It's not used in the system right now. We may use it sometime in the future. But for teachers, what the scheduling routine does is it does its best to make sure that a teacher has a possibility of getting to every entry that they made. But you know, when teachers go out and make 47 entries and it's a one-day contest, of course they're not going to make everything. But the scheduling routines will guarantee that the accompanist and the student will have this amount of time to go through and change when they need to. If you do make any changes to any of these pages, always make sure that you click on Save when you're done. Okay, the second area I wanted to show you is to take another look at the rooms and time slots. There is a separate video on setting up rooms and time slots, and that really needs to be done before any scheduling is done, because rooms and time slots are what the entries are scheduled into, and if they don't exist, we won't be able to schedule. So these are the ones that I set up in the rooms and time slots video. If you've watched that, if you haven't watched that, you probably should before you do any scheduling. So what we're going to be using today is we have a flute time slot that is a 10-minute increment, and it runs from 10 a.m. On day one. Our contest is a one-day contest. If it wasn't, we'd have more days listed down here. It runs from 10 a.m. until 12 noon. We have a judge assigned to it already. However, that's not required to do the scheduling. And we have assigned flutes into this. And notice that we have a couple of breaks already put in here from 9:40 to 9:50. Actually, that's even, I'm just going to take these out because they're not even within that time slot anymore. I've done some playing around with this. So. Okay, so we're 10 a.m. until noon. So make sure that your time slots are pretty well set up. We can always adjust them later. And so now I'm going to go ahead and click in, and I'm going to open another tab by holding down the control key as I click on scheduling. So notice here, scheduling is another tab, but I still have access to my rooms and time slots. This is not required for scheduling, but it's really handy for showing you how scheduling works. Okay, so on the scheduling screen, we have a couple of different areas. The left-hand side shows you, as it says, the entries. And currently it's showing us all unscheduled entries. All items, meaning instruments, voices, and unscheduled. And they're listed down here by item. So here's all your flutes, here's your bassoons, here's your string ensembles, small string ensembles. We can scroll down. That's all we have ready to be scheduled here. It's a very small contest. On the right side, you see the time slots that you set up. And here we have a brass time slot running from 8 until 5, runs the whole day, big one. We have a half-day double reeds time slot. And then there's what we're interested in. Here's our flutes time slot running from 10 a.m. until noon. Excuse me. To make it easy, I just want to zero in on the flutes only so that we can be looking at less data. But any of the steps that I go through on this page are appropriate for 5 entries or 500 entries. It's the same type of process that you go through. So I'm going to go change what we look at. I click this, let me show you. I click this little change button right here. So I'm going to go change, and instead of showing all time slots, I'm going to uncheck that. Now it gives me a list of my time slots. And I just want to look at the flutes time slot. Go ahead and close that. So now, look at that. The brass and the double reeds are gone. So now I'm just looking at my flute time slots. I'm going to change this side too, just to make it nice and clean. And I'm going to not show all items. I'm just going to show my flute and then close. So I got flutes on the left that need to be scheduled. I have flute slots on the right that are ready to accept them. And let me show you first, on the time rooms and time slots, you learned that you could add reservations for breaks, lunch, or just a generic reserve. You can also do that here if you need to. So let's say that we wanted to have a break from at 11 a.m. for 2 time slots. You just go ahead and click the left arrow here, or the right arrow. We'll select the break, or I could select lunch, or I could select reserve. I'm clicking as I move here. And then where do you want to put it to? Just go ahead and click over here. I want a break at 11 o'clock, and I want it to continue until 11:20. So I've created a break there, and now I can remove those if I want by hitting the garbage can. Or I can put it in just a general reserved. It's not a break. For some reason, we're just reserving these 3 time slots. As you do your scheduling and you move away from this page and you come back to it tomorrow, all of these reservations that you put in are still going to be there. Okay, so how do you actually go in and schedule? I'll first show you how to manually schedule someone. Let's say that our little Wendy McFlute here, that student, I'm going to go ahead and click the arrow to select them, and it'll highlight the one that you select in green. And you can manually choose where you want Wendy McFlute to play. And I'm just going to say, I'll say 10:30. So I click on that arrow, and Wendy McFlute with the teacher, Rick Lyson, and no accompanist is now scheduled to play at 10:30 in the flutes room. Notice that the arrow reverses. So now we can unschedule. Oh, and Wendy McFlute is gone from this side. So to unschedule Wendy, we just click the left arrow, and Wendy McFlute ends up back over on the left-hand side. So if you want to manually schedule several people, you can go ahead and do that just by individually selecting them and putting them in. And you can only put them into a free space. So there, I could do all of my flute scheduling just like that. And it's all done, they're all scheduled, but I've had to do that completely manually. So let me show you how to do it a little bit quicker and let the system decide where they go. So I'm going to go ahead and unschedule all of these. And I'll leave it like that with a 20-minute break. And a couple of things up top here. You can also filter down by contest. So for those of you that have multiple contest types, being winds and percussion, strings, vocal, whichever ones you choose, you can also filter down and just schedule your winds and percussion, and then go on, just schedule your strings. You can also do them all together. That's the default. And then under the actions, here's where we do auto scheduling. And don't let this list make you nervous. There's a lot of options, but it's flexibility, and they're all very similar to each other. First of all, we can auto schedule 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ways. And then we can clear the schedule 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways. So what are these? We can auto schedule every entry in the contest, or we can auto schedule just the ones that we're filtered down to right now, which makes a lot of sense. Or you could auto schedule all solos, or all small ensembles, or all large ensembles. So it's kind of whatever level you feel comfortable in doing this. After you get used to the system, boy, a lot of people just schedule the works and see how it goes, because it's extremely easy to undo. And how you undo it is you can clear the schedule of all locked and unlocked time slots. And I'm going to take a quick break on this because I do want to show you how to lock a time slot and talk about what that means. If I have little Wendy McFlute over here, you see on the right-hand side, there's a grayed out picture of a padlock. If I click on that padlock once, it turns red, and this Wendy McFlute entry is locked, and the auto scheduling routine will not touch it. Okay. If I click it again, it's unlocked. Now, you can still remove it, and I just did manually, but the auto scheduling routine will not remove it if it's locked. So if you have someone that, as an example, you've got a flute player that for some reason absolutely needs to perform right at 10 a.m. because they have to leave right away, you can put him in there manually, lock it, and then go ahead and do automated scheduling for everyone else. All right. The other thing I want to mention on the manual scheduling is if you go and manually schedule someone, again, I'll pick on Wendy, and you put them in at 11:30, the system does a check right then at that point. And if Wendy McFlute is playing, if that individual has a commitment anywhere else in the contest within the rules of your scheduling, then it will tell you right then that this is a conflict and you cannot do that. So that could mean that Wendy is also scheduled to play piccolo at that time in a different room, or has to play 10 minutes later in a different building, but we need 20 minutes to get her over there. So it does check the schedule, so you can't double schedule anyone. Same goes, by the way, for accompanist. If there's a if this entry requires an accompanist and the accompanist is busy during that time, it will not let you schedule it in there. Okay, so let's go back up to our actions here, and we can clear, you can choose to clear all locked and unlocked time slots. You can also clear the schedule, just the visible ones, both locked and unlocked, or the safe way, clear all the unlocked time slots or clear the visible unlocked ones. You can clear all the solos, all the small ensembles, all the large ensembles. So these are your tools to get large groups of things scheduled all at once. And here's how it works. I'm looking at the flutes on both sides. If I go say auto schedule my visible entries, bam, 5 entries are now scheduled over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And notice specifically, just because I want to show you what happens if you reschedule, that Wendy McFlute she got put at this last slot of the day. And it's totally random how it works. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to clear all entries. Puts them back over on the left. Now they're ready to schedule again. If I auto schedule my visible entries again, Wendy's now at 11:30. So again, it's all random, and every time you run the schedule, it will be different. What it is doing, though, is it is also taking into account any special requests if your contest allows it. So here is a special request for AM. Here's a special request for midday. Well, in our particular case, well, AM, we can satisfy that one, but midday, or an afternoon request, if you have those, no, that wouldn't be possible with this set of rooms and time slots, because we're not allowing any flutes to play at that time. So we won't be able to satisfy that request, but they'll still be scheduled. Okay. I also want to go show you what would happen if we didn't have enough room to schedule all of our flutes. So to do that, I'm going to go back over to rooms and time slots, and I'm going to change this to start at 11:30, go up to 12, and I'll go ahead and save it. I go back over to schedule a contest. This is why I set it up as 2 different tabs, so you can quickly move between between your rooms and time slots in your schedule. I'll go ahead and refresh my page here. Now notice I've only got 3 time slots. I got 5 entries. So what happens if we auto schedule all the visible entries? It schedules 3 and it didn't schedule 2. And you'll have to, after you schedule, you would look at your entries, say, we're all flute scheduled. Or really the bigger question, what wasn't scheduled for the whole contest? Out of my 400 kids that I've got, who wasn't scheduled? And then you'd pull up the corresponding time slot or just scroll to it and say, oh yeah, they're full. How many more do we need? Oh, 2 more? Okay, I'm gonna make this go then from 11 a.m. 11 a.m. rather than 11:30. I click save, I go over, I refresh. Oh, there's my extra. Oh, interesting. We still don't have enough space because we had these 2 reservations in there. So I'm just going to get rid of those. And now if I go ahead and reschedule my visible ones, great. It now scheduled the 2, another student and Wendy McFlute, back over here. It left these 3 where they were. So it doesn't start scheduling over. Anything that you already have scheduled, it'll fill in whatever holes it can. Okay, let me show you a couple other things. So I'm going to switch back to show all items again. And I'm going to click my change over. I did that by clicking change over here in entries. I'm going to click on change over here, show all time slots. So I'm kind of back to looking at my whole contest. I must not have gotten that one. Oh, yeah, I am seeing them all. I'm going to unschedule those all entries so we see our flutes over there. That's the problem. So I'll unschedule all. So we're back to having no one scheduled. Now I've got a brass time slot. I have double reeds, which should cover that bassoon, and I have flutes. So if I auto schedule all entries, it'll do everything it can, and it did. We had no brass entries. It had 1 double reed, 1 bassoon, and it had our 5 flutes. Excuse me. What's left over here is it was not able to schedule any of our small string ensembles. And that's for a very good reason, because I have no time slots available at all, nothing defined for small ensembles. But I could go over to rooms and time slots and I could add one, and then it would schedule those. All right. Okay, so that's a quick look at scheduling, and it's all done here. And the concept is that this is a iterative process. So you're going to schedule, adjust your rooms time slots, unschedule, schedule again, and you may do that for a half a dozen times until you get what you want. You could also do it by chunks. You can do all of the winds, all the strings, all the vocals, or maybe you even want to drop down and say, well, I just want to do flutes and nothing else. And then I'll go on to clarinets, and then I'll go on to some of the brass. And so you can take it really at any chunk that you want to. But I think once you get used to it, you're going to wind up being able to just say, okay, I think I'm close. We're using the setup that we did last year. I'm going to auto schedule all entries. Oh, darn it, I forgot to do string ensembles. Go make some adjustments in the rooms and time slots, and then come up and reschedule. And if you do that, if you have to add a new time slot, fine. It doesn't mean that you have to unschedule everything you've already done. If it's looking good and you're happy with it, just leave it. you can go back and just schedule the small ensembles and take care of anything that's left. But your job is to move things from the left over to the right, and then maybe to tighten up or expand out these time slots to make it more comfortable or more convenient. And by more convenient, I mean, if we had a flute time slot, this is actually worth showing. So let me go into rooms and time slots again. If I actually go in and say, well, I have a flute room open from 8 a.m. in the morning until noon. And then you go into scheduling. Let me go ahead and clear the schedule. And then I'll go ahead and reschedule everything just to have it be a random schedule again. If I go down and look at my flutes here at the bottom, this is a pretty big waste of time, right? We've got, the judge is sitting doing nothing for half an hour, then gets one flute, and then sits until almost 10 a.m., has 3 more, and then has only 1 more. So you could go here and say, well, I want to make this smaller. Let's break it up into 2 time slots and put the flutes first. So let's just go from 8 until 9:30. Okay, let me show you how to do that. We're 8. You try and go to 9:30 and you click save. And we can narrow up here saying, no, there's scheduled entries for this conflict or for this time slot that conflict with the time change. So to do that, they're saying, no, you need to clear these out because we can't just go to 9:30 because we already have stuff scheduled out past 9:30. So you could go in here and you could just manually take those out, or maybe you could clear the whole instrument, your choice. So I'm going to leave this Wendy's entry, and I'll leave that one just for the heck of it. Now I've got it 8 until 9:30. I'm going to click save again. And now this time it updated it. I can refresh. And now look at this. I have a lot smaller space. Now I can reschedule all entries or just flutes. And now it's a lot tighter. We still have some free space. So you can expand and contract your time slots to get the nicest contest that you can. That's convenient for the judges, but still gives all the students, the teachers, and the accompanists a way to get around. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is how to get into the scheduling reports. And they're on the reports menu, and they're available for any schedule that you've got. And so I can look maybe entries by room. It'll go out and run the report and says, great, the main building, room 502 was the room that we were in. Time slot name is flutes. And here's my entry ID, name of the student, the school that they're at, what instrument or voice they're playing, what building they're in, what room, and what time they are, and are they eligible for state? Yes or no? Okay. You can also look at, that's just entries by room. We can also look at entries by judge. So here's judge number 1 name. This would actually be the judge's name, John Smith or whatever. And John Smith is in room 502 on Saturday from 8, and the last one is at 9 a.m. And this same judge is also assigned to double reads in 502, the same room, but now in the afternoon. And there is only 1 entry there. Judge 2, we know, is assigned to the brass time slot, but there's no scheduled entries in brass. All right. So I won't go through all of these, but you have entries. You can look at all entries. You can look at the list by accompanist, by judge, by room, by student, by user, which is your teacher. So I can go, I will look at that one. So here's me. I'm an OpusEvent user, and I'm supposedly a teacher from Bellingham. And here's my students, and here's the time that they're performing and in what room. I have another user, which is VB Rick license from Bellingham, which is a different teacher that has a couple of scheduled entries on bassoon and flute. All right. These are the reports that are actually going to be emailed to the teachers, to the users, to the accompanists, to the judges, and I'm going to take care of that in a separate video. For now, this is what I got for scheduling. So I encourage you to go in and play around with scheduling. It's okay to schedule and then unschedule it and start over. It's meant to work that way. And just because you need to keep in mind that just because you move someone over from here over to the left side, it doesn't mean that their entries are being thrown away. They're just being unscheduled and ready to be scheduled again. So thanks for watching. Good luck with scheduling. I hope things go well. If they don't, you know how to contact me. Easiest way is support@opusevent.com, and please be sure and include which contest you're working with. All right, thank you very much.